Well, hello there. It's Mel Clifford again, and trying to make a slightly better job of recording a YouTube video. This particular video is going to be a discussion, if you like, of the council meeting where the motion to impose restrictions on dogs at the Aquadrome was passed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video. I'm going to add some commentary as we go. Some of it will be useful, some of it will be daft. Let me know what you think. It's going to be a little long. My apologies, but it was a long discussion. Let's see how we go.
Right, that's the end of that item. I will just double check. I think the next item is item number 7, which is the public spaces protection order. Is that?
Yes,
yeah.
that's me.
If you'd like to do an introduction, I gather we've got a speaker. I think lots of people wanted to speak, but I think you're going to be speaking, Morgan. So not yet. I will let the officer do an introduction and then I will explain the process, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
So the gentleman speaking there, Councillor Chris Lloyd, Liberal Democrat. Lead member for public engagements is actually Stephen Drury, but unfortunately he could not make the meeting. He was supposed to be chairing the meeting, but didn't turn up. The other person that's missing from the meeting, Sarah Nelms, the deputy leader of the council, another Liberal Democrat for Penn and Mill End. She was supposed to be there also, sadly was unable to be there. I find the fact that the two most senior members, or lead member for this topic and a very senior member of the council, did not find this meeting important enough to turn up. Back to the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. This report is in relation to the Council's Public Space Protection Order relating to the control of dogs, which first came into effect in April 2016, was extended in 2019, again in 22, and further extended in April of 2025 this year. This report, following a period of statutory consultation and in response to various other engagement exercises with the general public, proposes some changes to that existing PSPO, namely changes to grazing areas covered by the order, an extension of the dogs on lead requirement at the Aquadrome, the introduction of a dogs on lead requirement in the area around the cafe at Leavesden Country Park, and the introduction of a dogs on leads on land adjacent to the highway district-wide. Report's fairly self-explanatory. It is a legal order and therefore does need certain council approvals in order to be put in place. Happy to take any questions that the committee might have. Thank you.
So the lady speaking there, I believe, is Emma Sheridan, Associate Director for Environment, who reports to the Chief Exec. So not a councillor, but a member of the staff of the council. She is actually paid by the which means she gets about £79,000 to £87,000 a year in. Not sure if that's salary or total compensation. Still seems like a reasonable sum of money, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Okay, do the committee want to hear the speaker first, or do you want to? Yep. If you'd like to come up, you will have up to 3 minutes. If you're ready to time, we will give you a 30-second warning before the end. Are you ready? So start when you're comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, there are a number of other people who wanted to speak tonight, and having spoken to them, we're all on the same page on this issue. You seem to have conjoined two different matters. You've got the existing PSPO around the cafe area, which has been in existence for 2 years. In actual fact, that was out of date in April and should have been renewed, and you're trying to renew it late. There has never been any notices around the cafe area about the PSPO. This new scheme that you're trying to bring in, myself and others have walked around the Aquadrome. There are no notices in the Aquadrome anywhere about these proposed changes. The first I became aware of it was a week ago when there was a post on a local Facebook, which I know you, Chris, are also a member because you do some of your constituency work through there, nearly 24,000 members, nobody had heard of it. And there were varying opinions as to what should happen and why they weren't told. And Three Rivers was saying it went out on their website. Well, as of habit, I pay a lot of attention to local politics, but I don't trawl the Three Rivers site every day looking for changes. And on Facebook, I get the Three Rivers Facebook feeds onto mine. I have not seen it anywhere. I put it out on our local WhatsApp group, which has 96 members, many of which have dogs. Nobody knew anything about it. Speaking to others here this evening, they've taken local polls as well. Nobody knows anything about it. And I would say that the consultation process just hasn't happened or hasn't been effective. Therefore, it should either be thrown out tonight, or if you're minded to move it on, then it goes to a time further forward and proper advertising for a consultation process takes place, because this was not a public consultation. You've had 7 responses of varying opinion. That is not, for the purposes of a democratic change to something quite important and fundamental to a lot of people around here with dogs, is not satisfactory. It's not just keeping the dogs on a lead. A lot of people own dogs that need a lot of exercise. We've got members or people here who've got Vizslas, who have got my daughter's small dog, a Maltipoo. Those of you with very small dogs know that they need to run around a lot. Otherwise, you get them doing zoomies around the house for hours. The big dogs need a lot of exercise. Most of that is done safely at the aquadrome and does not need leads. So I would say that this should be thrown out tonight, or if you're not minded to throw it out, that it goes forward to a date in the future where proper advertising and proper public consultation takes place.
So, yeah, very well spoken by this guy. Kind of had a few chats with him since then. He's very much involved in local politics. I know he's involved himself in other campaigns. Kind of likes to keep a low profile though, so I'm not going to say too much about him. I think the social media post he's referring to is one that I posted up on the RCCG and subsequently the WD3 Facebook pages, 2 large local groups, which RCCG is by far the biggest. And as he said, nobody seemed to be aware that this was coming. The only reason I found out about it was I happened to look at the agenda for this meeting upcoming, and I posted it out there. Council doesn't exactly publish the agenda a long way in advance, so really surprised that no councillors have posted anything about this anywhere to try to make people aware. Very dubious.
If I could come back to the officer to pick up some of the points that were raised before I ask members of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. So I can confirm for members that all the statutory requirements for consultation have been met by the consultation. So the consultation is legal and it is what is required to statutorily bring in the order. The consultation was promoted through all our normal media channels. It was promoted and reached over 8,500 followers on Facebook, just under 8,000 followers on Twitter, and over 2,000 followers on Instagram. It also went out by direct email to all those residents who are registered with us to receive email updates.
Please don't. Yeah, you can't interrupt. Okay, we let somebody speak. Please let the officer speak.
Of that.
So that was the chairman shutting down a question. Obviously, you'll realise that the audio recording the council provides does not include any noises off. So if members of public or other people at the meeting say anything, you're not going to hear anything about it.
According to our digital tracking system, that was reached by over 1,500 residents with a 58% open rate and projection onto the documents. So we are confident that it was promoted in the way that it was legally required to, as well as all the statutory consultees being able to have the opportunity.
Okay, that's about all I can put up with listening to her. If you want to watch all of her spiel, you'll be able to find it elsewhere, but it's beyond my ability to listen to it. Let's just scroll on a little way.
Few people who don't do that, because I have been bitten this year. I didn't have to have a tetanus because I'd already been bitten. So I'm currently 3-2 to dogs over cats. So I can understand a number of concerns that people might have. But Eleanor, I think you.
So there's the chairman in a very neutral way, trying to influence the outcome of the meeting by stating that he's been bitten twice by dogs. He doesn't say it was the Aquadrome, doesn't say where it happened at all. Apparently he's also been bitten 3 times by cats. Animals don't seem to like him. I've no idea why.
Expressed a concern because of children.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got 2 young children, and we use Leavesden Country Park quite regularly. And despite our best attempts to introduce friendly dogs to them so they can become willing participants with dogs, they are petrified of dogs, and dogs off the lead completely spoil our whole park activity, and they just run screaming, and dogs will then chase them, and it's just unpleasant.
The lady speaking then, Liberal Democrat councillor, and I'm just looking at my notes. Can't remember where she's a councillor for, but you'll notice she talks about Leavesden Country Park. Her dogs were scared at Leavesden Country Park, not the Aquadrome, not Croxley Moor. And even more interestingly, when you look at the PSPO, the only part of Leavesden Country Park that it's going to make on lead only is the area immediately adjacent to the cafe, which was the situation, or is still now the situation at the Aquadrome. So she's complaining about being scared in one place and wants restrictions somewhere else.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you to Morgan and others that wanted to speak as well. I do share a number of Morgan's and other objectors' concerns about this. 7 responses is not, whilst it might be legally a consultation, is not a meaningful consultation in terms of ascertaining the views of people across the district. In fact, I've got the tweet open in front of me when it was sent out. It doesn't mention the Aquadrome highway. It doesn't mention what's being changed about it. Public space protection order is a technical term, and it wouldn't be obvious to people who aren't obsessed with local politics, as Morgan said he is, to understand what that means or what that is. You look at the number of people that opened the documents. Only 6 people opened the document called Dog Control Draft Consultation. 6 people opened the document, the Aquadrome PSPO. So only 6 people actually knew what was being proposed out of 90-something thousand. So whilst it might be lawful, I don't think we can necessarily say this reflects public opinion or has gleaned information. Now, I'm not a dog owner. I think I could probably fairly be described as a crazy cat man, but I think it's important to make sure we listen to a lot more people than we have done. I would raise substantively a number of concerns about this. I completely understand Councillor Gazzard's concerns, particularly as someone with young children in her case. But if they're out of control, there's already a criminal offence of having a dog out of control in a public place. There is already a PSPO that requires dogs on leads when a direction is given, or importantly, even without a direction given, where a dog is out of control or has risks attacking another dog or a human being. That's already in the current PSPO and is being proposed for renewal tonight. So as a consequence, if that is the mischief that's sought to be addressed, the PSPO already does that. We don't need to expand it to require dogs on leads across the entirety of the Aquadrome. And then the second concern that residents have raised, which is around dog mess, again, is also covered by the PSPO already. And that was the number 1 concern. 4 of the 7 respondents did say that dog mess is a concern. So if we are saying that a PSPO is going to solve all the concerns of people, why isn't it addressing the dog mess concern? It just seems to me that this PSPO doesn't address the real mischief that is sought to be addressed here. The law already addresses that, and I therefore do not see why this PSPO would help us. The number of FPNs that have been issued under the existing PSPO, which I can't remember the exact number, is it 4? 6, thank you very much. There's six that have been issued since 2016 when the first PSPO was issued. That's not a meaningful deterrent to the real mischief, which is dogs out of control, and there's already a law against that. So I'm very unclear why we want to extend it to the aquadrome, which, as was pointed out by the deputy, would have a significant impact on people. I would know, I do know that there are a large number of people for whom the aquadrome is not just a local nature reserve. They travel from a long way away. It is their local park. It is where they would take their dog to walk naturally and need to avoid the zoomies and to avoid them not getting the proper exercise and socialization. So I think it is we take this step. We should take this step only with very great care and attention, which I don't think has been shown so far.
So that is Councillor Oliver Cooper, the leader of the Conservative group. Seems like a decent guy. Would question why none of the Conservatives have raised this till now, until I stirred the pot on Facebook. So the reason Oliver is there is that he is standing in for Lisa Hudson. So Lisa is the Conservative councillor for Rickmansworth Town. I think the most adjacent, might even include the aquadrome, I'm not sure. But then Lisa appears out of the 9 meetings she's been supposed to attend recently, has attended 6 of them, so she has form. I'm sure there are good reasons for that, but again, it's an important reason. Don't understand why she couldn't be there.
If I can just respond to that. So the issue with regard to dog mess, we have to consult, and as part of the consultation, we have to consult do people wishes to continue with the existing measures, one of which, as you quite rightly point out, is around people picking up dog mess. So we have to consult on that if we want to keep it. So that's why the consultation was on that. With regard specifically to the aquadrome, which was only one of the changes, what I would say with regard to the consultation online platform, it is just one way that we consult and engage with people. As I've explained, we did it also by direct email. We've done it through face-to-face engagement, actually in the aquadrome in the summer, and again face-to-face when we did the aquadrome management plan back in 2022, which was the last time before this occasion that the PSPO was updated. With regard to the aquadrome specifically, it's not just about interaction with other individuals and indeed children, which was something that came up quite a lot. It's also...
No, it didn't come up quite a lot. There were only 7 responses, so how can it come up quite a lot?
About balancing the wider needs of the aquadrome as a site. It is a nature reserve, and it does have a lot of protected landscapes, protected ecosystems, and some nationally important wildlife that exists within that area that we want to protect. We are also seeing significant erosion around the lake banks. Expert studies have identified that whilst not the only cause of the erosion, dogs entering and leaving the lake is a significant contributor to that.
So the expert studies weren't presented at the meeting. I can't find any documentation around the meeting, any reports of where that statement's come from. I would question it. I know from working with the guys at the River Chess Association that the biggest source of erosion seems to be the invasive non-native American signal crayfish, which in the winter hibernate, and they do that by burrowing into the banks of rivers and lakes. And I would think they're a much larger impact on the lake. There are very few spaces around the lake where a dog even can enter or exit. I know they do. Certainly not something I would advise owners to let their dogs to do, but I seriously struggle to believe that it's a significant impact on lake edge erosion.
One that damages the lake. Also, it's very dangerous for the dogs because of the algae that lives in the lakes. It's very dangerous. So this is about protecting the animals as well.
Only true during high summer when algal blooms occur. These don't occur all the time. pretty much all through the winter and spring. There are no algal blooms and the risk would be minimal to none.
Well as protecting the nature. And we do, as has been discussed many times at this committee, we do have the asbestos factor to manage on the site. And yes, whilst dogs are not the only animals that potentially could dig up and unearth asbestos, we do see incidents where that happens, and that is again exposing asbestos that then has to be either remediated in terms of covering or removed at expense to the council. So it's not.
Yeah, no, I'm not buying that one either. I don't know if she thinks dogs are driving around with excavators, but a dog would have to be doing a hell of a lot of digging to dig up the asbestos. Don't know why you'd cover it back up again, where you could remove it. And are they proposing to get rid of all the other species that might dig in the aquadrome? I guess they could cull all the badgers, the deer. They tend to do a lot of digging and scraping. Moles, who knows? Rabbits, everything digs holes. And yet apparently it's the dogs that are a problem. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that one either.
Just one issue at that location. It's a lot of different issues. We respect the fact that people do enjoy to walk their dogs at the aquadrome. It is a beautiful place to take your dog for a walk. We're not proposing that we ban dogs completely from the site. We're merely asking responsible dog owners to put their dog on a lead and to stick to the paths with their dogs.
So it's not just you keep it on a lead, apparently. You've also got to keep it on the path. Paths are pretty narrow, and lots of the aquadrome, the paths are surrounded by large amounts of grassland where dogs can run around. People can run around, people play in those areas, dogs play in those areas. Apparently you're going to be asked to keep them on the path. Now, that's not actually in the public space protection order. Maybe that will be in next year's public space protection order when they get bored and decide this one's not restrictive enough.
There are other areas in the almost immediate vicinity where people can walk their dogs off lead. The Bury Grounds is just across the road. There's no PSPO restriction proposed for that area. Rickmansworth Park is within walking distance of most of the town. Again, dogs can go off lead in that area as well. So there are local alternatives.
So what's going to happen? People who do want to let their dogs off their lead will be ejected from the aquadrome, no longer able to do so there. So they'll go to the Bury Grounds or to Rickmansworth Park. What's going to happen then? There'll be way too many dogs in those smaller areas. That will generate complaints, and then next year the council will be back to say why Bury Grounds and Rickmansworth Park needs to be included in the order, and you can't take your dog off the lead there either. You lose your freedoms one at a time. Before you know it, you've lost them all.
As part of the changes that are proposed, that would be supported by a communications campaign which would signpost dog walkers to where they can safely and legally walk their dogs off lead. So it is about balance, and for this particular location, the albeit admitted restriction on dog owners to keep their dogs on a lead does seem like a fair balance for the wider needs of the site and the other users of the site who have requested this.
I'm unsure as to why a council executive gets to decide what is fair and unfair. That is not her job. The job of the executives is to implement the policies of the council. That's the elected council. I'm appalled that she is expressing that kind of pure opinion. It's not a fact. It's based on no particular evidence. It's just an opinion. She thinks it's fair. I don't.
Can I ask you a quick question before I ask other members of the committee? Within the other consultation, were the people requesting that we ban dogs totally from the aquadrome?
Some people did, yes.
Well, I'm going to post the stats as an attachment to this video. And I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 people that wanted that, but it was a tiny, of the 7, obviously, but it was a tiny minority. I think what's really needed here is a freedom of information request, because they are claiming, again without evidence given at this meeting, that they conducted interviews on site at the aquadrome. I would love to know when it was, how many people they spoke to, and why they think that interviews conducted in 2022 should still be relevant today in 2025. I know councils move slowly, but this is glacial.
Okay, so my view is we're trying to find a balance. I don't own a dog, but I think having a dog is brilliant because it's getting you all out exercising. And as lead member for leisure, this isn't my committee normally, I want to find things which will encourage people to be active.
So long as it's not taking their dog off the lead anywhere.
We obviously have one part of the report because none of the other bits on the grazing, on Leavesden Country Park. Obviously, you've spoken in favour of the Leavesden Country Park. And if I go back over 30 years, we brought in fences around our playgrounds because there was dog fouling, which wasn't appropriate for children. So I think there are a number of you here who are not happy. I'm proposing to take a vote on it because I've seen no other hands.
Yeah, well, they've certainly fenced off the play areas. If you pop down to the Ebury play area, you'll see they've fenced off the fence. And if you look inside the fence, you'll see there are fences fencing off the trees inside the fence. What is it with this Liberal Democrat administration and fencing? They love this stuff. Whether it's the Riverside Path on the Aquadrome or the Ebury play area, there's loads of bits of fencing lying around everywhere.
No, you cannot speak, I'm afraid. We have one member of the public. I let a member of the public speak. We obviously had a member of the public who emailed all of the committee and it was forwarded to me as tonight's chair. So I am going to move.
So there are a number of members of the public there, and all we wanted to do really was ask some questions. Questions like, when will this come into effect? Will it be legally binding given that there are no signs? Why haven't you previously enforced the rules that were in place? I'll remind you that these rules came into effect in 2016, I think, since when there have been 6 prosecutions, and that's not in the Aquadrome, that's throughout the whole of 3 rivers. I don't know how many there have been in the Aquadrome. Apparently they also banned one dog walker. I suspect that was a commercial dog walker, walking multiple dogs at the same time. I'd certainly support that. By the way, if you don't have time to walk your own dog, don't get a dog. Anyway, back on with the show. Now the public have been put in their places.
No, I'm going to move a recommendation. I may come back to you in a minute.
And that's Councillor Cooper put back in his box as well. So the chair doesn't want to speak, doesn't want anyone to speak, doesn't want the public to speak, doesn't want councillors to speak. His sole interest is in getting this piece of business out of the way and voted for.
I'm going to move the recommendation. The office of recommendation is to approve the variations of the current PSPO relating to dog control throughout the district for the remainder of the current PSPO until the 31st of March.
So a lot of blather here from the chairman. All he's doing is reading stuff out that was already in the agenda, but I guess that's what you have to do when you run a meeting like this.
2028. By maintaining the current powers and adding the variations relating to dog control ensures that there are deterrents in place and penalties for those who fail to behave responsibly. It aids in balance the needs of dog owners and other members of the community, as well as the needs of the natural species and ecosystems and dealing with antisocial behaviour. So that is what I'm proposing. I'm happy to take you now.
Thank you, Chair. I would then. So rude, Chair. No, don't. All right, I don't.
So what happened there was the chair forgetting to turn off his microphone. And unless he turns his mic off, no one else can speak. Democracy at its finest.
That's rude. No, so yeah, so thanks for that. I'm very unhappy with that part of it. There are parts of this which I am supportive of, including, for example, the renewal of the existing PSPO. But I think given the renewal of the existing PSPO, particularly regarding the leads on direction and the dog mess elements of it, I think that the element adding the prohibition on the area around area not around the cafe in the Aquadrome is unnecessary. So I'd like to move an amendment to remove that from the draft PSPO.
So it's a good suggestion from Mr. Cooper. Just quickly on the subject of dog mess, there are two kinds of dog owners. There are responsible dog owners. And, you know, they're just going to keep an eye on their dog. They're going to keep it close to them. They're going to make sure it's trained and under control. And if they see it poo, whether it's on the lead or off the lead, they're going to go clear it up. And then, unfortunately, there are irresponsible dog owners. And if you seriously imagine that because the dog is on the lead, that's going to change their behavior, I think that's incredibly naive. Poor dog owners will just ignore it. I've seen them do it myself on Rickmansworth High Street. A young lady who literally pulled her dog into a doorway of a flat or stairs to a flat on the high street. It did its business there and she just walked away, completely ignored it. So being on the lead, being off the lead, it doesn't matter to these people. The right answer for those people is A, education. Do they understand that they shouldn't be doing it? And B, if they understand, then it's about enforcement. But education is better than enforcement. And enforcement is better than laissez-faire, which is what we have right now, where there are lots and lots of rules. They are not being enforced, and the Liberal Democrats plan to add more rules, which will likewise not be enforced.
That's my memo.
You need to ask, is there a seconder for what I've proposed? And is there a thank you. And is there a seconder? Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't, so do we take the amendment first? Right, so we're going to take the amendment first. And if that is passed, that becomes the substantive. If it falls, we will then take a vote on what I've moved. Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And just because there is a lot of interest in this on social media, I'd like to move this to be a recorded vote as well, please.
What's the process? Do you need to have a certain number of people? Yeah, that's fine. But I may need to get the office to get the names ready because we. Are you going to just read the names, or will you just put the hands up and record the names?
Either. Easiest.
What do you want to do? Because I can ask. Yeah, we're going to call the names out. Sorry, we just. Oops, sorry.
So Councillor Ali, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Cooper.
So that's the three Conservative councillors voting in favour of the amendment to remove the section regarding Rickmansworth Aquadrome. I wish I'd known about the impact on Croxley Moor, because it's a shame that that part of the new rules doesn't seem to have got much airtime, and that's partly my fault because I didn't pick it up.
Councillor King. Councillor Rayburn.
Against.
Councillor Rainbow.
Against.
Councillor Cyan.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd.
Against. Oh, sorry. Against. I think you've missed one.
Yeah, and Councillor Gazzard.
Against.
So all the Liberal Democrats and the Green councillor voting against there. Again, I'll put a list of the councillors that voted for and against the amendment in the comments on this video, so that you can vote against them next May or next time they come up for election. Yeah, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. There's a lot of blather. Eventually they vote for the substantive motion, which is to move that these proposals be accepted, and it goes exactly the same way as the vote did on the amendment. The three Conservatives vote against it. Everybody else votes for it. All very depressing. The other Conservative councillor present, by the way, is Councillor Chris Alley. That's the one in the middle of the Conservative group. And since I had a go at Lisa Hudson for only being there for 6 of 9 meetings, I should mention that Chris is also only turned up for 6 of the 9 meetings he was supposed to recently. At the end of this, those of us for the public left the meeting. We were all very disappointed. I think you all know by now that there is a petition up on Three Rivers website, which you can use to register your objection. I've also got a YouTube video up that explains how to access and vote on that petition, since it is not straightforward. In fact, it's downright obtuse the way that it has been coded by the council's web designers. That's about it. I think there's not much more to say. There is a public meeting on Monday at 7 p.m. at the Coach and Horses in Rickmansworth. I'd love it if as many people came along to that as possible. I'd love it if as many people as possible voted on the petition, so that we can let the council know just how much resistance there is to this particular item. Maybe I'll see you on Monday. I will give an update after the meeting on Tuesday as to what happened. We shall see. Thank you very much for persisting with this really, really long video. Sorry it was so long. See you next time.